Hi friends, welcome back to the Chittenango Landing Canal Boat Museum Storytime. Today we are reading Chapter 6 of Minnie the Mule and the Erie Canal. Chapter 6, Going East. "Another lock coming up," Captain Fairweather called. Sarah came out of the cabin where she had been helping her mother and ran to the bow of the barge. Her mother followed, wiping her hands on her big apron. They watched the gate's attendants swing the steering paddles to open the doors for them. "When we come out of this lock, look up on the cliff and you will see something that will surprise you." "What? What will I see?" Sarah asked eagerly. "Just wait," her mother smiled at her. The fat man spinning the door paddle spat as they passed him, and a stream of dark tobacco juice hit the water. "Ugh, I am glad Papa doesn't chew tobacco," Sarah wrinkled her nose. The gate swung closed behind them, and once more she saw that they were near the top of the walls of the lock. This time she was more prepared for that sinking sensation as the water started to lower their boat. She could see Mike walking Molly along the towpath to the other side of the lock, and she saw that Jack had jumped ashore while his father's boat was separated from theirs, going through the lock. It was not too long before the gates at the far end of the lock opened and they were swelled out onto the canal again. "Over there, Sarah," Abigail Fairchild pointed at the stone cliff ahead. "It's a man's face. Who is it? Who carved it there?" Sarah looked in awe at what appeared to be the profile of a man in the face of the cliff. Her mother laughed. "It is not a carving. Over the years, the water and the blasting that has been done here to make a passage has made that rock look like a man's face. No one did it on purpose, but it is a big attraction for the tourists that come past it. We haven't seen any tourist boats since we left Rome. I was hoping that we would." Sarah remembered the stories that Jack had told her about the packet boats full of wealthy people who took the ride up the canal from New York City. He said they went to some of the big resort hotels along the canal. "Pa said Oneida Lake is one of the places that they stop, at Sylvan Beach. We have been there. Remember when Jack and I went on the rides next to the canal?" Abigail nodded. "We couldn't afford to stay at the hotels there. Some of the tourists go all the way to Syracuse and Rochester, or even to Buffalo, and some leave the canal farther west and go by carriage up into the Adirondack Mountains. They have beautiful hotels up there." Sarah thought her mother sounded wistful. "I'll bet Mama would like to stay in one of those places, but I like staying on the barge." She walked with Jack again that afternoon along the towpath. Mike was eating an early dinner before going to rest on his bunk. "What are we having for supper? I thought I smelled apple pie. It sure smelled good." Jack rubbed his stomach. "I'm hungry already." "We are having roast beef and mashed potatoes, and Mama baked an apple pie for dessert," she grinned. "If Mike doesn't eat all of it." "He had better not. Walking makes me hungry." "I brought you some cookies your ma baked." She reached into the deep pocket of her dress and handed him a molasses cookie. "Aunt Mabel says you are a bottomless pit when it comes to food," she teased him. "Ahoy, the barge!" Sarah looked out at the barge, just coming even with theirs from the other direction, going west. She saw her father go to the rail to greet the burly man who had hailed him as their boats drifted closer together. "I wonder who that is. He must know Papa." Sarah watched the two men reach out to shake hands. "That is Captain O'Malley. I met him last summer." Jack laughed. "He is quite a character. Oh, I think we are going to stop to visit with him." He saw his uncle steer the barge to the edge of the canal. When the landing plank was lowered, Sarah ran back to join her father aft on the deck, just as her father asked the big man where he was heading. Syracuse first, to unload, then on to Buffalo with a load of salt. He looked down at Sarah as she ran up to the rail, and his black beard split in a wide smile. And who is this mite? He was dressed in a flannel shirt and overalls, and a cap with a long visor rode the top of his bushy dark hair. He was the biggest man she had ever seen. This is my daughter, Sarah. Her father put his arm around her shoulders. Sarah, this is Captain Christopher O'Malley. He looked down at her. I have known the captain since I was a boy no older than you are now. He and my father shipped together sometimes. The captain engulfed her small hands in his huge ones. She don't favor you, John, thank the good Lord. He laughed heartily, enjoying his own humor. No, she looks like her mother. Her father was not offended. Go and get your mother. He turned back to the captain. Can you spare the time for a visit? We are just changing mules and we are about ready to eat. Can you join us? Dan and his family are with us. Your brother is here too? Good. I can always take time to eat. Just let me tell Sal so she don't have to feed me. Sarah and her mother came close, and she heard her father say, Sal, you married since I saw you last? The captain roared with laughter. No, Sal is my cook and first mate. Picked her up in Troy, and she's going the distance with me. Oh, Sarah thought her father hesitated. Would she like to join us for supper? We have plenty, don't we? He looked down at his wife as she came to stand next to him. Of course we do. It's good to see you, Chris. It has been a long time. Too long. The captain's burly arms spanned the distance to hug her. We have plenty of food. Ask your cook, Abigail. The captain's not married, her father said hastily. Your cook, she finished smoothly, to join us too. She turned to Sarah. Go and tell Aunt Mabel supper will be ready in just a few minutes. And tell her that we have company in case she has not seen the captain. She turned back to visit. Our families eat together and it gives us a chance to visit. She came back a few minutes later with a basket of fresh rolls Aunt Mabel gave her to carry, and her eyes nearly popped when she saw the woman Mama was talking to. She had bright yellow hair, and her eyes were outlined with so much black coal that they looked like two purple grapes. Aunt Mabel poked her to make her move from where she had stopped dead at the top of the landing plank. The lady wore a shiny red dress covered with a grimy white apron tied around her ample waist. I've never seen a cook that looked like this lady. She turned as Sarah and her aunt approached and smiled at her. Sarah was fascinated by a tiny black mole fastened at the corner of her red lips that seemed to go up and down as she talked. This must be your daughter, Abigail. She looks like you. Her mother nodded. This is my sister-in-law, Mabel. Sal. As they turned to go down the short flight of steps to the galley, Sal followed, looking pleased. You don't know how good it is to have females to talk with. I get mighty tired of those hoagies that the captain brings aboard. She smiled at all of them impartially, and Sarah found herself liking her. Before long, they were gathered around the table, and Sarah and Jack listened while the grown-ups recalled old times. Sal ate hugely and praised every bite she took, making Abigail and Mabel flush with pleasure. In spite of all the makeup she wore and her strange clothes, Sarah decided she liked Sal very much. Aunt Mabel asked her how she happened to get the job cooking on the captain's boat, and she looked down at her plate, biting her lip. I found Sal without a job in Troy, he answered for her. She was having a hard time making it, and I needed a cook. She needed a job just as bad, so I asked her along for the trip. And it has worked out good. Captain O'Malley continued jovially. Sal steers as good as any man, while I be the hoagie, and I was able to get rid of the extra man. Never had me a daughter, and Sal and I get along just fine. You are hauling by yourselves? Sarah's uncle looked surprised. Old Sam Stinger is still with me. He is tending to the mules while we are eating. I'll fix him a plate, Abigail promised. That is mighty nice of you. His weathered face split in another grin. Say, we ran into some excitement in Amsterdam this morning. They had a big bank robbery, and the thief got away with close to $10,000 from the Grinstall's payroll. There was a bank robbery in Utica and one in Herkimer as we were walking through. Did you hear a description of the thief that held up the bank in Amsterdam? Captain John lit his pipe as he sat back in his chair. Yep, big fellow with a red beard. Sal said she was glad I was aboard. She figured all men with a beard look alike somehow. He laughed heartily. Maybe he's on his way to New York City just like us, Sarah whispered to Jack. Sure looks like it, don't it? He whispered back. We will be in Amsterdam tomorrow. Maybe they will catch him before we get there. And that is it for today's story time, friends. Please join us tomorrow for chapters 7 and 8 of Minnie the Mule and the Erie Canal.